In this demo, I'll be showing you how a hash map can be utilized to store data based on keys. The program I'll be creating for this demo simulates lockers, like student lockers or a locker room. Each locker will be given an ID number, and the lockers will have contents. I'll be using a hash map to store the locker number and what each locker contains. A hash map is a great data structure to use for this situation, since lockers can be accessed in arbitrary order based on who shows up to open up their locker. Before I start writing code, I'll be taking a look at the Rust standard library documentation so we can see how a hash map can be utilized in your program. Here we have the documentation, and the hash map is a type of collection. I'm going to scroll down to the collections module. Here we see we have collections, so I'll click that. Next, we see the collections that are available. And here we have the collections, along with documentation on what collection you should use in which situation, and the performance trade-offs for all the collections. I know I want to use a hash map, so I'm just going to click on hash map. Here we have information that we need to properly utilize the hash map. As you can see at the top, we are at std collections hash map. So in order to access this hash map, we're going to need to use another keyword in Rust. And if we take a look at this first example, we'll see it right here. So we need to have the use keyword in our code, and we need to use this path here, which is also shown at the top. So whenever you're browsing Rust documentation, even if there's no example provided, you'll be able to access whichever item you're reading based on the top, because it'll always show you your current location within the documentation. So let's add this to our code. That way we can use a hash map. To do so, I'd simply type in use std collections hash map. Hash map will now be available in my code, and I can get started writing my program. So for the locker numbers, I'm just going to use an i32. And for the contents, I'll use a struct. The contents of the locker is just going to be a string. And I'm using a structure just in case I want to specify exact contents later in the program. Like suppose I want to make it so lockers can only have certain things, then I'd be able to easily list those things within this structure here instead of having to rewrite portions of the program. Next, I'm going to create some lockers. So we'll have some lockers, and that will be a hash map new. So we'll create a new hash map. Remember to make it mutable. Otherwise, we won't be able to add anything to the lockers. Next, I'm going to add some content to the lockers. So we'll use lockers.insert, and this will be locker number 1. And we'll add in some contents, and the content will be stuff. So we'll put stuff in this locker. And then I'll make a few more lockers. And this locker will have a shirt. And this locker will have gym shorts. Once that's done, we can print out the lockers and their contents using iteration. So I'm going to print out both the locker number and the contents. So I'll call it locker number content in lockers.iter. If we jump back to the documentation real quick, we can see if we click on iter, we can iterate through all key value pairs. And remember, it's in arbitrary order. So it may not be in the same order that you placed in the hash map. And the usage is right here. So for key value in the hash map .iter, you can take some actions. So we're going to print out the locker number and the content. Before I run the program, I want to make sure that I can actually print out the contents. To do that, I need to derive functionality. To do that, I need to derive the debug functionality, which will allow everything within the contents to be printed out using the debug print token within the print line. And I'll just run the program, and we should have locker number 1 with the content of stuff, locker 2 with a shirt, locker 3 will have gym shorts. Now remember, they may not print out as 1, 2, 3. It may be 2, 3, 1 or 3, 1, 2. Or it may just coincidentally print out 1, 2, 3, but there's no way to know ahead of time. So I'll save this, we'll run it. And here we have locker 1, 3, 2, and the content for each locker. So locker 1 has stuff, locker 2 has shirt, locker 3 has gym shorts. And that's how you can iterate through a hash map. Hash maps are quite easy to use, and they're fantastic when you know what the key is and you want to access whatever's within that key at any time. This concludes the demo on HashMap. I'll see you in the next presentation.